We are live.
All right.
Wow. Okay. We already have 58 attendees. That's really exciting. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. My name's Christy Hoffman. I'm with Beekeeper. I'm going to just give everyone a couple more seconds to get settled and to join the session. Now we're at 65, 66. Thank you so much for joining us. If you received our email inviting you to this, that was me. If you saw an ad and you registered from that, that was also me. I'm so glad you're here. It's so nice to see that stuff works and we can get the word out about these really great, helpful sessions. All right. Well, again, like I said, welcome to today's session with Cargill. 12 ways to create a better frontline experience. Like I said, my name is Christy. I sent you the emails and got you here, and I'm so glad you're here. And I just want to say thank you. Your employee experience is the heart of what makes any business, but specifically your business, successful in any industry. The fact that you're here says a lot about the values and the dreams and the trajectory of your organization and your future success. So before we dive in, yes, I will send you a recording of the session. You can also use the chat in the Q&A. You'll see a little panel off to the right. Feel free to react in real time and say, oh, that's a great idea, or I hadn't heard of that, or we're going to try that. If you have a specific question, go ahead and drop that in the Q&A, and I'll address that at the end. So please participate, use the polls that you're going to see, and we are going to dive in. To kick things off, we have some really great experts leading you through this session. We've got Sarah Moore. She's the CMO of Beekeeper. Kimberly Wolf, the business relationship manager for Cargill. Jay Knoll, the senior communications specialist for Cargill. And Stephanie Arnold. She's got a very long, great title that still isn't even what you see on the screen. She's head of HR for Virginia. She's their HR leader, but she's really focused on the employee experience and employee relations. I'm going to launch a poll right now because I want to see which industry you all are attending from. So I'm going to set this poll to go live. Take the next 30 seconds. Tell us where you're coming from. And if your answer is other, please tell us in the chat what industry you're attending from. A lot of manufacturing. I get to see this live. I'm seeing all the polls. The poll just dance around right now. I'm going to close it in another 10 seconds. So make sure you submit your answer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So looks like a lot of you are from manufacturing, but we have people from grocery. We have people from utilities, construction, all over the place. Hospitality, retail, welcome. The really great thing about this session is that the stories, although Cargill is food manufacturing, their stories are going to help you think differently about how these same creative ways they found to drive engagement can also apply to you and your organization. So thank you for joining. And here we go. We're going to dive in. The agenda, just so you know the flow of what you can expect. We are going to cover current frontline workforce challenges, then do a really great deep dive on how Cargill puts their people first, and what the future looks like and how you can start thinking about things you can apply now, but things you should think about working forward to and planning for as you're going to drive engagement through the rest of 2022. And with that, I will hand things off to Sarah.
Thank you, Christy. Welcome, everybody. Sarah Moore, CMO here at Beekeeper. This is one of my favorite things to do, to chat with our customers and tell their stories. So thank you for your interest and your participation today. For anyone who doesn't already know, Beekeeper's mission is to empower frontline businesses with technologies that make your workforces more engaged, productive, and happy. We hold a very passionate belief that the frontline workers at businesses across manufacturing, retail, hospitality, everybody on today, are the engine that drives your business. And so we work with over 1,000 frontline businesses worldwide, hundreds of manufacturers, but actually cross industries. So Let's jump in. I'm going to share some insight about what we see as we serve those businesses, some external third-party data, but as well as our own research. The first headline is something that's probably not new to everyone on the call. No matter the industry or the region that you live in, the world is suffering from labor shortages. And in manufacturing specifically, the latest data out of Deloitte says that 46%, almost half of manufacturing employees struggle to fill open positions. That's up 11% from 35% just 2 years ago. And that's specific to manufacturing, but I think this trend holds true across industries. And then double clicking on that a little bit, we know that women make up a large percentage of the frontline workforce, and we've seen that National Women's Law Center reported that between the months of February and May of 2020, we saw a massive exit of women, largely due to the pandemic, but lots of other reasons too. We know they take care of families, et cetera. So this exacerbates the challenge that we're all facing. In addition to those stats, there are other macro trends that fuel and exacerbate this shortage. The first is digital transformation, as can be very disruptive and empowering in an organization, but we're seeing that finding new ways to work can be a struggle. Generational and cultural shifts in the workforce. We have a generation of workers that are aging out, younger workers coming in, their expectations are different. And then we're also seeing a very mobile workforce that is moving around the world, which is creating some cultural barriers, language barriers, and things that can make it harder to have the right teams. Now, that's all excellent information. It's an outside in view. If you think about the frontline worker, third party people studying this problem at an industry level. But because we're passionate about the workers themselves, and we serve so many, 1,000 businesses, almost 500,000 frontline workers use Beekeeper on a regular basis, we've surveyed them recently to find out what they care about and what they find stressful and what they find most motivating. And so this labor shortage, came across loud and clear as something that not only affects the employer, but the employee, that 90% of them rated understaffing as the number one stressor, which stands to reason, right? Like if you're on a team trying to get a job done and you don't have enough people, that's incredibly stressful. It's also conversely, proper staffing is one of the key factors for workplace happiness. So everyone is motivated to address this challenge. How do we do that? It helps if we understand what motivates them. And we got some really interesting insight from our survey here. The first is not surprising. Everyone wants to do a good job, complete their work on time. That's the number one. Positive feedback from managers and customers, where that's relevant, is the second thing that our workers, we had 1,500, by the way, respond to our survey. They said that is the number two thing. And then the last one was a little bit more surprising. The third thing, it wasn't pay, it wasn't culture and engagement and team vibe. The third thing that our respondents said really motivates them is when they understand why things are changing. So when corporate delivers a new policy, or when a manager says we need you to do a task a little bit differently, it's really important and motivating to the worker when they know why, which again stands to reason. But this is a source of what we see, some of the sources of a disconnect that we see. I'll get to in a second. Before I do that, our rock star moderator Christy has published some handouts in the one of the little folder things or tabs that you'll see in the top right of your screen. You can download the Frontline Trends Report from there and read more about what we learned in our research. So I said, this worker's perspective is important because it's a source of a disconnect that you'll see on the next slide, which is really fundamental. And that is, frontline workers' reality is totally different than the office workers that we have with us today. They don't dial into big marker webinars or Zoom meetings or Teams meetings. Many of them don't have email. They work in a completely offline fashion. The collaboration, coordination that they need to do does not have the benefit of the kinds of tools and technologies that many of us office workers take for granted. So because they don't work at a desk. I talked a little bit about cultural shifts that have driven a massive impact on multilingual teams. Like we'll hear today, I don't want to give away the story, but there are many more languages than you would expect in most frontline businesses. Lots of turnover, not just in the last 2 years, but this workforce tends to be very mobile. And so there's a massive disconnect. The technology and the tools that businesses have offered to employees just don't solve this different reality very well. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our one of our favorite customers, Cargill, who have taken the bull by the horns and found a better way to serve frontline workers. And we'd love to have Jay have you kick us off and tell us a little bit more about Cargill.
No, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Christy, and to the entire Beekeeper team for facilitating this discussion. Again, my name is Jay Knoll. I'm a senior communications specialist supporting Cargill's protein business and in North America. And I first want to start off by talking a little bit about Cargill, because I think public perception is like, yeah, I've heard of Cargill, but not really sure kind of what they do. So I want to basis in that Cargill and its 155,000 employees around the world works to nourish the world in a safe, responsible, and sustainable way. And so we bring together people, ideas, and resources to deliver products, technology, and ways of operating that build successful businesses and communities. And we've been doing so for 155 years. In North America, more than 28,000 people in Cargill's protein business process beef, poultry, value-added meats, egg products, and we supply them to food makers, retailers, and food service companies around the world. Across more than 40 locations, these colleagues reflect the diversity in the communities in which we live and operate. And in fact, as Sarah alluded to, we have more than 30 different languages spoken across our production locations, both in the US and Canada. And now I think it's safe to say that, effectively reaching a diversely equipped employee base continues to be a challenge for every global corporation, but thanks in part to tools like Beekeeper, Cargill's protein business can both inform and connect with its frontline employees like never before. Yes, it is absolutely a communication platform, but Cargill believes that it's much more than that. It's an employee experience platform, and anything that we can put into the hands of our employees to make their jobs easier and help us in our efforts to be the employer of choice in our communities and live one of our core values in putting people first, it's truly a game changer for us.
That's awesome. So one of the first questions we wanted to ask is we kicked off with the top trend in frontline business or any business, frankly, is labor shortages globally. So how are you guys handling that today, or how have you handled that over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I can take that one, and thank you. I'll echo Jay's comments. We appreciate you facilitating this meeting, and for everybody who's attending. So I'll just kind of start out kind of high level and then drill down into some of the things that we're using Beekeeper for, specifically in pursuit of that employee experience. So, I mean, I don't have to be the one to tell everybody on this call that labor and labor shortages were an issue before the pandemic. And so the pandemic, as we all know and have experienced, has really, the pandemic has exacerbated that challenge. And so in addition to what we'll talk about here in just a second, in terms of technology and communication platforms or opportunities, Cargill is also aggressively pursuing other things that will help us recruit and retain our talented employees. So we know that things like wages and benefits and bonuses, employee incentives are important. We know that as an industry, wages have increased significantly in the last couple of years from the pandemic or pre-pandemic to now. And so, of course, Cargill is, is addressing things like wages and bonuses and benefits and things of that nature. But we also understand that within our communities, and I'm sure in the communities of the folks who are on this call, we also know that access to and the affordability of things like childcare, housing, transportation, even access to affordable medical care can be a challenge. We have one location, just as an example, where public transportation stops 2 miles short of the facility. And so things like that, Cargill is pursuing, whether it is piloting on-site childcare, subsidizing various transportation, methods or solutions. We have several of our protein facilities that have near site medical clinics where our folks can seek out medical care for themselves and for their families that are exclusively dedicated to our people. And really working with our community organizations and elected officials to, continue to bring those, access to and affordability to those things. So those are some high level things, but specific to the employee experience and how we're kind of utilizing Beekeeper are things like, our employee referrals and our, so I mentioned the bonuses and the incentives. That's something that many of our facilities are doing. And I would say pre-Beekeeper, we communicated in a way that was probably typical to some of the ways that folks on the call are communicating in bulletin boards and maybe some emails and, post the flyer in the hallways and things like that. Now we're able to share that information quickly. We're much more agile in how we are sharing that information with our facilities and with our, more specifically with our team members. And we're doing so in ways that are not only useful for them to consume that information and to understand it in a language that they're able to understand through the app, but also in a way that it makes it really easy for somebody to pull up on the app and say, here, my friend or my family member, here's something that Cargill's doing, and here's a better way to apply. So that's something that we're doing. And then we're also able to share job postings in a better way in terms of getting the information to our stakeholders, sharing the posting, sharing the information. And what I personally love about that is not just the fact that we're sharing the information, but many of our facilities also are sharing who was promoted internally or who was welcomed into the Cargill family at that particular location. And so I would say it's just so valuable to have not just your manager or just your immediate colleagues say, hey, welcome to the team, or hey, congratulations on your promotion, but the value and the power of having 10 or 20 or 50 of your colleagues throughout the facility say, hey, we're really glad that you joined us, or hey, congratulations on your promotion.
That's
great. So those are some of the things that we're doing there.
Yeah, and then building on that, we also heard in our preparations here that Cargill has a lot of ways that you put people first. And I think that recognition is kind of a nice segue. We saw from our research that recognition is one of the things that really motivates employees, which certainly helps with retention. So it's cool that you guys have followed through on that. What are some of the other ways that you guys put people first?
So I can continue that and then I'll kick it off to Jay. But one of the things that we're doing to put people first is to keep them safe. And so one of the things that we've been able to do is, of course, we have our various, safety related policies or various COVID related practices, things like that I'm sure many folks on this call have as well. But we're able to share that information very quickly if something changes. And we're also able to, to take questions from folks if they've got questions that come up during that, related to COVID. I want to make sure I'm not forgetting.
Stephanie, you touched on something that I don't want to miss. The fact that people can ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
So even on something that, talk about an uncharted territory with this global pandemic and, the shifting guidelines and decisions and confusion that created. What you're saying is that the team used Beekeeper to help ask questions. So it wasn't just pushing information out, but it was also receiving feedback from.
It's absolutely the two-way interaction there. It's not just, hey, I read something in a hallway. It's now I can ask for clarification. It's now I can ask, a follow-up question. It's, hey, I can interact better with my manager, with my support functions, with my colleagues on what that means for me. So it's not just COVID health policies or safety policies. It's also how we are able to engage our folks with, it could be safety training. It could be, various crisis communications, weather communications. I've even seen things like, hey, everyone, it snowed this morning, as you're aware, make sure that you're careful as you're walking in, using it as a kind of a safety moment or just-in-time safety connection. So we're able to utilize that in a way that allows for that two-way communication, the understanding, in a way that we're able to keep people safe and communicate the information that they need right now to continue to stay safe.
Super. And then Jay, did you want to build on that?
Yeah, I just Stephanie's exactly right. I mean, that is our priority, right? Is to keep do our best to keep people safe, have them go home the same way they came in, right? And you know, some locations, whether it be weather events and a reminder about slips, trips, and falls, or just simply posting a picture about not bypassing a safety feature on a piece of equipment there. I mean, it's been amazing to see our facilities and our beekeeper advocates and our facilities really um, uh, bring to life our safety culture throughout Cargill through Beekeeper. It's been pretty awesome. I would just say that any investment that we can make to improve our employee experience, I mean, that's the North Star, and now more than ever, especially over the past 2 years. And I think about the ways that Beekeeper can connect our teammates with our customers, and share the shared value and successes there. We have customer spotlights that we communicate with our customers with, because when our customers win, we win, and our employees, as part of our culture, take real pride in the products and services that we deliver for our customers. And so to give our employees that awareness is truly awesome. I think about our mission to feed the world, and how we're building a stronger supply chain. Again, connecting our employees around that, which is so important to our culture, has been awesome. And then I think about Beekeeper or any platform that breaks down siloed working, and allows for a more open engagement at a site. You talked about that two-way communication that happens no matter the language that's spoken, right? I mean, with over 30 different languages spoken in our plants, to have a tool to, in the hands of our frontline workers, to be able to translate into any message into their preferred language is truly awesome. I mean, ultimately, to be the employer of a choice in the communities where we operate, again, we've got to be the easy button for them. So employee access to everything that they need, right in the palm of their hands is paramount. And we've seen, improved shift schedule management, with the ability to publish updates securely and in real time. I believe that the connection of information with engagement and the camaraderie in our production locations has never been stronger, and it's been visible thanks to tools like Beekeeper. And we're building teams within our teams, so that's awesome. And speaking of open engagement, just that two-way communication, just an example of that. I mean, we recently had a general manager reach out to our team just to thank us for providing her with a platform like this. She says that her employees at their production location feel very empowered to reach out to her directly through a Beekeeper chat message with questions that really are facilitating a more trusted and open dialogue at that location, which is just awesome.
I think that's a really powerful, if I could interject there, example, Jay. Some companies of your size and scope worry about inviting that two-way conversation. There's a fear of like, what will happen? We'll lose control of the conversation. And that's a warranted concern. However, we said at the top in our survey of 1,500 respondents that said, context for why things change is one of the biggest ways you can motivate me.
Yep.
And it's really difficult to accomplish that if you're only pushing information but never receiving in a modern way, like you said, because the suggestion box, the like literal physical box that I would bet good money somebody on this phone still has a physical suggestion box. Maybe you guys do too. But there's just in the year 2022, there's a better way to do it. And so that general manager taking the time to thank you for, wow, I'm more connected to them, they're more connected to me. That trust and relationship is part of how we're going to keep them from leaving, and how we're going to recruit more great talent just like them.
Yep. Our suggestion box is now digital, thanks to Beekeeper. Absolutely. And yeah, and just having that open, transparent dialogue. I mean, I think if you did a pulse check, and one of the things that, if your employees are coming back to say something with reaction of like, well, my voice doesn't matter or my opinions don't matter, that's striking to us, and something that we wanted to offer, invest in our employees and offer them a tool to say, no, your opinion and your voice does absolutely matter, because that is, again, one of our core values, is to put our people first, and if our people are feeling like their opinion or a voice is not heard or not valued, that's something that we need to address, and I think we've made great strides in that front, especially with the digital capabilities that we now have. So, and and there's a lot more to come, right? I mean, we're constantly thinking about different ways that we can use this platform, and especially around the recruitment and the retention of our talent. Again, it's an employee experience platform, and the better we can recognize and engage all of our teammates throughout Cargill, both as you would say, traditionally wired and non-wired, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, and let's talk about that future, Kim. What are some of the things that you're looking at and that I know we're really excited about helping enable?
Beekeeper has been a game changer for our frontline employees, because they now have an ability to engage and be informed when it's appropriate for them. Instead of, before shift or after shift, we have to come together in a huddle, which during COVID wasn't safe. Now they can engage with the app. And we are, bit by bit, we're trying to bring more value to our frontline employees. Our frontline employees are amazing, but we need to make sure that we're continuing to give them more features and capabilities that matter to them. The number one thing that we have going on right now is an integration with ADP. It's in progress. It is not yet complete, but it is very much in progress. In which we're getting there. I can't wait. There's going to be champagne.
Yep.
We are going to deliver a pay stub in a PDF format to a private chat to the individual, so that from their cell phone, they would be able to pick up their pay slip when it's convenient for them. It eliminates the dependence on the employee having to find somebody from human resources if they're having issues trying to get logged into ADP, for example. So that will free up labor and free up Discord, right? So that easy button of, I can go to my chat, I can see my pay stub. Yep, I worked overtime. My overtime is there. That is going to be an amazing feature for our employees. And we also expect it to increase the engagement that our employees have with the tool, because it's a really good incentive to be able to just get my pay stub, easy peasy. The couple other things that we're working on are the pieces that are really impactful to the employee around training. So how can we communicate training that's necessary? One of the things that we've done for our local administrators within the Beekeeper tool is to make sure that we've got some training in multiple languages, right? That's really important to you meet people where they're at. And then we're looking at how do we help with tasks and so on, help that onboarding process for the employee so that they know exactly what they need to do when they're getting set up and they're getting started. And then it's that links, those helpful links to all of the benefits information that an employee is going to need so that they can get at it again at a point in time where it's convenient for them. It could be that I want to look up something with my benefits because I have a medical thing going on at home. If I can do that from home and I don't have to go into the HR office, or if the HR office is closed on a Saturday, anything we can do to make life easier for our frontline employee is a really good thing to do. And Beekeeper has been really good with us, and especially in developing that ADP integration, which I cannot wait for.
It's almost there. It's happening. Let's thank you for that, Kim, and tip of the iceberg still for all the benefits that we've just talked through. One thing that I want to highlight before we move to some of the audience questions that we received in the survey, and then I do see that we're getting a bunch of them through the Q&A chat feature, so thank you, is that the time saved for everyone is always valuable because it's the most constrained resource any human being on the planet has, right? We have limited time. But there's also a lot of financial benefit to an organization that connects, as Jay said, and is really invests and follows through on empowering and making their whole workforce not just feel appreciated, but to make them better at their jobs every day. And so I think that's important thing to note. And that's another thing, Jay, that you and I are working on is really quantifying that financial value that goes beyond time savings. Because this disconnect between frontline and office work is something that we've overlooked. And therefore, all the financial impacts is another place that we need to do a deeper exploration. So next, the first audience question that we're going to answer came in from a survey response when you registered. Christy sent you, asked you what you wanted us to be ready to talk about. And so the first question is specifically to the pandemic. There have been lots of ups and downs. How have you kept your employees feeling connected to the company? We talked about some of these things already, but was there anything that happened throughout the pandemic where you really, really kind of shone a light on an aspect of this that you could share with the audience?
I can maybe start the conversation and would welcome Kim and Jay's additions on anything that I missed. But, I think going back to, Sarah, even at the beginning, right, when we're talking about one of the most impactful or motivating things that somebody can have is, information that's timely and that provides context. And so not only have we been able to literally connect with one another throughout the pandemic, but I think it's by the folks who are providing some of those updates that has been really helpful. Specifically, especially in a manufacturing setting, right, where we, we're in masks, we may have physical barriers that prevent us from having some of those conversations and some of those interactions that would normally sustain us and sustain, those relationships that we know are so important in the workplace. Those were different throughout the pandemic, and we're not totally through it yet. And so being able to communicate in a way that is in a language that somebody can understand or interpret, and then by the folks that are providing some of that information, right? So I think it's been really powerful, and Jay mentioned an example, but it's really powerful when a general manager of a facility is able to say, hey, there's this thing coming up, you need to know about this, with whatever that might be, right? But a GM to say, hey, this is what's coming up, here's what you need to do, here's what you need to know, and then to invite questions. It doesn't mean that the GM has to take all of those questions, but that's where then it can go like, okay, this question, hey, thank you for that question, we're going to have this person follow up with you, or hey, that's a question for this department. And it just really becomes this amazing conversation around what is taking place, why it's taking place, what do I as an employee need to do with that information. And that really creates this community of, I'm informed, I matter, my questions are being heard, that suggestion box, right? We all just want to feel heard at the end of the day. And when your suggestion box is digital, like Jay mentioned, you don't have to wonder like, hey, did you see that? Like, it's there and it's an interaction. It's just been really powerful.
And we don't intend to replace in-person interactions at all.
Mm-hmm.
We want to enhance and augment them. And
I think this has.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We see that value. Every one of our customers will still do a daily huddle, but the daily huddle is now more valuable because instead of covering some of the basic stuff like informing, you can cover challenges or do some of that team recognition that we know is so meaningfully done in person. So I did want to share that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just add, when we talk about keeping our employees feeling connected and informed, I would also maybe include engaged, not only during the pandemic, but moving forward, which I think might address one of the questions that has been asked in the Q&A. And in that, is there a gamification element to the platform to further motivate our employees? I will say, yes, there has been a gamification element throughout the pandemic to not only get our employees connected in this new digital way, but there's been a great effort to continuously build that culture and camaraderie at a site level, and that gamification has been grassroots in that sense. I will say, moving forward, we're looking at new and exciting different ways to bring a gamification element from a broader business level, to have our employees engaged in that way, and think about, we're even thinking about things like badges that employees can earn if they meet production levels or attendance levels or things like that. I mean, we're exploring things like that, especially when we think about again, retaining and recruiting the best talent in the communities in which we live and operate.
For sure. Yeah. And the grassroots, that we saw that the number 2 thing that our respondents to the survey said really motivates them is rewards and recognition, feeling seen and appreciated. Yep. Right. And so it's always beneficial and powerful to get it from your customers and your managers, but that team recognition, that grassroots piece really pays massive dividends when you make that possible and easier.
And absolutely ongoing, right? I stole a saying from a former colleague, but recognition is a wedding, not a marriage, right? Yeah. So it's ongoing, and we absolutely have that mindset moving forward, and excited about the opportunities and capabilities we have with this tool.
Great. Another really important topic that I think everyone would love to hear your insights on is how you're supporting mental health of your frontline workforce. What are you guys doing for that?
Yeah, so I can take that, or at least start it. We're doing a few different things. Specifically within Beekeeper, we've got several. We have a helpful link resource, and so we have got several links to resources for our employees that they can access on that front. Again, making it easy for them to access those tools, both for themselves and their families. At a corporate level, during the pandemic, we launched a "How are you doing really?" campaign, and that is truly what it is. Checking in on your colleagues and asking not just how you're doing, but really honestly wanting to know how are they really doing. And having an open conversation and getting the thoughts and feelings of our colleagues, because as we all know, the pandemic has been tough, for a lot of our people. So, and then finally, I would say, it's been really awesome to see the engagement that's been happening at the site level, where with tools like Beekeeper, we're able to maybe do a pulse check at locations to really see how folks at a specific location are doing, and we've been able to do that thanks to the survey function within Beekeeper.
And that can feel safer,
yes.
Right? Than an in-person confrontation or a topic that unfortunately has been taboo in our culture. And in an employer worker situation, it may not feel very safe to answer that kind of question openly. But if there can be a little bit more anonymity, it helps you get that pulse check to really know if there's some challenges that the employer should be supportive of. Because we as you said, the ripple effects of the pandemic, not just related to being sick, but all the ripple effects of that have been significant for just about everybody on the planet.
Yep. Yeah. And when we talk about safety, that's physical safety, but it's also mental well-being, right?
That's really, I applaud you guys. That's awesome that you do that.
There's a question in the chat that I'd like to take if I can.
Please.
The question says, how do you foster good personal relationships between managers and their employees? Does the tool get in the way and take something away from the personal interactions? What I would like to help everyone understand is that the tool helps cross a whole lot of barriers, including the barrier of time. So we've got a general manager who, because the employees can chat when it's convenient for them, and she can chat back when it's convenient for her, she is now more engaged with her second shift team members than she could have been. And she's more accessible to the second or third shift or weekend shift. And she can respond either when it's convenient for her or in real time, depending upon what's going on. So it does not take away from personal interactions, but it really helps remove barriers of language. We've talked about language, but it also removes the barrier of time when you're dealing with people that are on multiple shifts. It really helps.
That's very, very true. Yeah. There was another question that came up that I thought we could talk a little bit more about, which is, do employees have to have smartphones? And would this create some sort of separation for any employee that doesn't have one? Most employees have phones. There is many, I'm not sure if Cargill takes advantage of this, but we do have the ability to push messages out through SMS so that anyone with a phone can receive a message. Obviously, that's not a complete solution. We have many customers that will use digital signage and digital tablets that would be available to multiple workers is another way that they've tackled that. We've even had customers who have provided the device, the smartphone device, either as a shared device that gets passed across shifts or as individuals, because the financial impact and benefit of creating this connection to a non-wired workforce, great point, Kim, that may not even work during the office worker work hours, may speak a different language, like the financial benefit of improving retention, improving productivity, reducing safety incidents, reducing the productivity impacts of a worker who catches COVID or gets sick because they didn't follow the policy. Like all of those things roll into one. For some of our customers who said it's cheaper for us to just give them the phone, and it's another employee benefit because it's one of the ways that we build our culture at their business. I'm not sure if you guys have addressed that though. Have you run into many employees that don't have smartphones?
We do have employees that don't have smartphones. We do have kiosks at every plant so that an employee who doesn't have a smartphone can log into a kiosk that is usually in a break room or cafeteria space. We have culturally also seen where an employee, if they don't have a smartphone, but their buddy does, they will connect up with their buddy during a break and say, hey, what did you see on Beekeeper? What's going on? And it becomes a connection point between two people helping each other out if one doesn't have a smartphone and somebody else does. So that became an interesting thing to see happen culturally. And we had during a snowstorm in Virginia, our general manager sent out word saying, plants closed, there's too much snow, stay safe, stay home. And he put right in the communication, if your buddy doesn't have Beekeeper, call them. It was right in the communication that if somebody isn't on there because they don't have a smartphone, whatever, please call them and let them know. So share the message that we need to keep people safe in this snow emergency.
Yeah, I think one thing I would add to that too is, in addition to what you've mentioned, Kim, I think another thing that's been really helpful in some of our locations is, many facilities will have, screens or monitors at different points in the building, whether it's a cafeteria or break room or entryway. And so being able to stream that location's content so that it, kind of, hey, you can sit there and watch the content that's new or relevant that day has been really great too, because even if you don't have a smartphone or you don't have time to log into a kiosk, you can still pause for a second and see a couple of the updates that are that have been posted that day.
Okay. One more question for us, and then we'll wrap out of respect to everyone's time. And that is, have you guys had to hire extra staff to support Beekeeper, like on the HR side, to answer what some organizations will worry is a flood of questions that, if they're asking, we got to be ready to answer, and who's going to do that?
I don't believe we've hired additional staff. What we have done is to try to make sure that many hands make light work. So at one location, it's not up to one person to do all of the communications. It's not up to one person to manage employee access, or the work gets divided. So the people that are responsible for safety will do safety messages and so on. So that way everybody shares in the opportunity to engage.
Yeah. And what one of our hospitality customers reports is that they'll find many hands make light work, Kim, like workers can answer other workers' questions. So it's not all, it's actually kind of the opposite. It reduces the burden of HR in a lot of cases because they can help one another. They're not dependent, like I think you said, Jay, hunting down that HR person. What if they're not even there in a night shift kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the increase in collaboration and tagging somebody and saying, hey, can you take this question? Or, hey, watch out for this one, or not watch out, but, hey, heads up, there's a question that's been asked. Can you take that? And having the multiple people, to Kim's point, it's, a particular facility might have 5 or 10 people that have been tagged as admins who are more specifically looking for some of those questions, and being able to direct people to the right folks has been great.
Awesome. Well, Christy, I'm going to hand to you to help us wrap up. There were 12 points that we promised that we would share, 12 tactics. We're not going to take the time to read them all. You guys will get the recording and the slides. But in one way or another, we covered all of these ways that Cargill is creating a better frontline experience, which makes you our heroes, guys. Well done.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Cargill team. And if you'd like to stick around, and if you're interested in how technology can help you and your organization reduce communication, optimize processes, get the right messages to the right people, and increase engagement, then please stay. If you're not, I don't know why you wouldn't be, but you can go.
No hard feelings. You might have a commitment. Yeah.
So I just want to help give the remainder of the time, if you can stick around, just show you some visual examples of what this looks like. Like you heard, safety is a central part of Cargill's culture. So for their workers and their food that they make and their safety protocols, the plant managers can record videos and share them with workers via Beekeeper. Like you heard, they use Beekeeper to send COVID updates in any language and request confirmation that employees actually saw, maybe a new policy. They can also empower their employees with the ability to submit a near miss report in Beekeeper. And in 1 year, we know that the number of times employees prevented serious injuries increased by 50%. They also use Beekeeper to ensure that their shifts are always fully staffed. Instead of giving employees a piece of paper or using, a bulletin board, any changes to scheduling can be pushed out with one simple notification on Beekeeper, and your employees can look at it on their break or from home, and they don't have to be at work or talking to their manager to juggle shift changes or make any adjustments. They just upload everything to Beekeeper, and changes can happen in the app. And they give every employee a simple screen that is tailored for them in their language, their location, their team, and their job. Beekeeper just makes it really easy for training and messages to be seen by every employee, tailored to just what they need to help them do their best work. And we love Cargill, and they are just one of hundreds of customers, though, that are part of the whole Beekeeper family across many industries like retail, obviously manufacturing, hospitality, and just so many other industries where this has been a problem. And now there's a really great solution to it. So if you'd like to take a deeper dive into what this looks like for your organization, what you can do is drop us a note in the chat, and we can set up a demo. We can just hear more about the problems that you're trying to solve for. And Beekeeper's really here to help you think creatively about solving for engagement at your organization. So thank you so much for attending. We will stick around here a little bit. If you want to ask a few more questions, we can answer those. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, we can answer a couple more questions, whoever wants to stick around. We've got 75 people still on the call. What do you think, Sarah? Do you want to stick around, you and I, and answer some?
I absolutely. I know that Jay, Stephanie, and Kim may have other commitments because we asked only for 45 minutes of their time. So really, guys, no pressure. If you can't stick around, we can certainly get questions back to you if some folks have them. Yes. But I'm happy to stay on as long as the audience wants. Well, actually, not 10 minutes. I gotta end at the top of the hour.
Thank you, Kim, Jay, and Stephanie. We appreciate your time. Take care. I mean, yeah, y'all use the chat. use the chat. Tell us, what do you think of this session? What other burning questions do you have? We've got a couple more quick minutes. I will send a recap email with all of the questions that were asked with answers. So if you didn't get your question answered, don't worry, we'll get to it. If there's anything else, let's see. Yeah, some of you are even answering each other's questions. This is great. Any language. Does Beekeeper dynamically translate messages into the recipient's language?
Yes, that's how it works.
Isn't that amazing? That's amazing. Just that alone is such an exciting way, just new way for employees to have the information they need in the language that makes sense to them. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're all welcome. Thank you, everyone, for the thank you messages. It looks like, most of these are deeper dive, more technical questions. So I'm going to get with some of my very smart colleagues, and I'm going to send you the recording, the slides. And it was so nice to see you all. I hope you have a great day, and we will be in touch, and look out for that email really soon. Thank you so much for attending.